Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, with us. I know there's an oversight committee in Congress, but really Judicial Watch is the government oversight in this town. Tom, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Julie.
You know, when we first discussed having you on yesterday morning, it was to discuss the document scandal, and we're going to continue talking about that, certainly. But I gotta get your thoughts on a former FBI agent. He led the counterintelligence division in New York. This was the division that was at point investigating Trump for so-called Russian collusion, and now he has been arrested for breaking U.S. sanctions, working with and getting money from Oleg Deripaska, an actual Russian oligarch, and by the way, also one of the key sources for the Steele dossier, part of the Russian collusion hoax. My God, Tom.
Isn't that curious? He was the special agent in charge up in New York, so he did more than just oversee counterintelligence. He was a top official in the FBI generally. I don't need to tell you why the New York office of the FBI is a key office there. Mm-hmm. And so while he and the FBI are using the pretext, the false one that they knew, that Russia and Trump were in collusion as a basis to spy on Trump, he actually was in collusion and partnering with foreign governments and their advocates to manipulate FBI policy. I mean, there were folks who were interviewed, folks targeted because of these business relationships that he did not disclose. And, the problem for McConnell is he's not the son of President Biden. So he's not able to do this without getting indicted by the Justice Department.
Yeah, that is tough luck for him.
Will they, he's retired now, but will the FBI review all of the cases that he was involved in during his career at the FBI? I mean, who knows how long this guy has, and I don't mean to say compromised, but how long he's been toying with these Russians.
Well, we know there's been at least two investigations. I read through the indictment. I counted at least two investigations that were compromised by this. He was traveling and doing, quote, informal interviews and not reporting, not creating records of them. So who knows what else he was doing. I guess I'm hoping, for the sake of our law enforcement system, that he saw he was retiring and he wanted to feather his nest egg and engaged in this alleged corrupt activity. But when someone does something like this, one, as you point out, Julie, you got to worry that he was doing it beforehand in other ways. Yeah. There the challenge is the FBI and Justice Department have little interest in exposing the scope of the corruption as it relates to Trump. Well, maybe Durham can ask a few questions, assuming he's still awake.
Right. Well, and by the way, Tom, you go back to Robert Mueller, whose main charge was to investigate so-called Russian collusion. Not just, hey, find dirt on Trump that we can use for an impeachment. No, it was supposed to be about Russian collusion and meddling in the election, and maybe if there were any Russian incursions, intelligence-wise, into the U.S. government. This guy was on the team, man. He was right there, and somehow Robert Mueller and his crack staff of investigators never found him. You're looking for the Russian collusion. The call's coming from inside the house.
That's right, and one of the big issues, as you pointed out, was this Russian oligarch who not only evidently had a business relationship with this gentleman, this FBI official, but also Christopher Steele. So, isn't it interesting, those attacking Trump all have been compromised by Russians, including Hillary.
Interesting is one word for it. Let's move on to the Biden document scandal, which grows every day. And now this headline just, you're either laughing, crying, or throwing something through a window. DOJ prosecutors weighing search of Biden's Rehoboth home. They say that they're requesting for a search of the home. How is there not caution tape around the Rehoboth Beach home for the crime scene that it obviously is, Tom?
Well, it's another example of Joe Biden getting special treatment by the FBI and Justice Department. This man has been keeping classified records in his home since at least 2008 or 2008, all the way back then.
At least, because they say since his Senate time,
It seems, I'm too old. It seems like it was yesterday. But and they kind of slow walk these searches or have these half-baked searches that the Justice Department and the FBI have let Biden lead, his personal lawyers and his White House lawyers. I don't know how the White House lawyers are involved in this at all, which is a separate issue, but no raid, no subpoenas as best we can tell, no grand jury. And I tell you, the biggest story isn't where the records are, but in my view, the nature of the records, because as you know, I thought President Trump had a right to the records he had. They can say they're classified, but they're not, practically speaking, because they were in his possession.
Mm-hmm.
And that same law applies to former vice presidents. You know what category of records it doesn't apply to? The records of a senator.
Right.
And the fact that he had records as a senator that evidently are classified raise really significant criminal liability issues for him that I don't think were present previously.
And let's not forget, and I need to remind everybody because, now that your holiday giving is done, if you've got any extra money lying around, judicialwatch.org needs to keep going. And it was judicialwatch.org. It was Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton who, through his FOIA requests, uncovered the fact that Hillary Clinton wasn't using a government email. That entire thing would have never been found out were it not for Judicial Watch's actions in finding out, hey, whose email address is this? How can Hillary Clinton not have any emails about Benghazi? Oh, it's because she wasn't using a government email. That server had classified documents on it, Tom. And as you know, James Comey decided, we can't bring any charges here because there was no intent. They're already walking down that path with Biden now. Oh, Joe Biden, he takes classified documents seriously because he says it all the time. So there's no intent.
It's not double standards, it's triple standards. One standard for Hillary, one standard for Trump, and then a third standard for Biden. And it is interesting how they all seem to fall down on one side of the fence versus the other.
Yeah.
Target Trump and protect their own. And, and the other question is, what's up in Delaware, not only in Rehoboth Beach, I should add, but the University of Delaware, where we've been in a pitched battle with them for over 2 years to get access to his Senate records. Now we know we should be worried there's classified information in them.
Larry and I have also been talking about how this was reported. The Biden administration did not report this to the Department of when the documents were found to the Department of Justice. He reported it to the National Archives, who kind of sat on it for a while. And it wasn't until the Inspector General ultimately reported it to the Department of Justice. I mean, why? Have you heard any rumblings about an investigation in the National Archives, which were also very aggressive about getting the Trump documents?
Right.
So it seems like there's a problem also on that level.
Yeah, there's two issues to be investigated, broadly. Obviously, the classified records, the records labeled classified that Biden had, who had access to them, why they were in 3 different locations, at least that we know of thus far. And then secondly is the Justice Department and other agency handling of this the cover-up of this material from going back at least to the beginning of November. They hid it before the election, and they frankly continued to bury it, I think probably until they realized the Republicans were going to get wind of it once they took over as chairing these committees that would have oversight and be getting internal briefings on the mishandling of this classified information from the administration. But there needs to be an investigation, again, of the investigators. That's for sure.
Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. We'll leave it there, but certainly this conversation continues. And it'll follow Tom over on social media as he continues the conversation daily. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.